Welcome back to the Innovative Agency, everybody. Sharon Toerek here with you today. And I know that with talking with a lot of you, we're just kind of on the tail end of agency conference season and a lot of interest, a lot of buzz at the conferences I attended over the spring amongst agency owners and leaders about how do we make the business of what we're doing easier? How do we implement solutions that help um, the work just easier to get done, whether that work is onboarding, whether it's financial controls, whether it is, workflow management, whatever it might be. Um, Sometimes we feel the pain on the financial side of things because we're bleeding profit because our systems are not where they need to be. Sometimes we think things are taking too long. It's a constant evolution and struggle, and so I'm so excited to have Alane Boyd here today from Workday Ninja to talk with us about all things agency workflow. And Alane, I'm sure you've seen a lot of things in helping the agencies that you help, and I'm so happy that you're here with us today to talk about all of it.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm so excited to be here. And you just framed it perfectly. It's, how do you squeeze more profit out and or get more time? And
Yeah,
so that's what I love talking about with agencies and how to do both
right.
or one, either way.
Well, I guess that's a great place to start. So when agencies reach out to you for your operational and workflow expertise, what's what's the biggest pain they're usually experiencing? Do you notice patterns among the pain points that these folks have when they contact you and say, "Help! We're a mess," or "We're okay, but we think we could be better."
Yeah, most of it is that they're at a breaking point. They've been running this for several years. They've gotten to a point, and almost every call, we hear the same phrase: I want it to work like it used to. Because when you're small and you're a lot more agile, you might only have one, it might be you and then two admins, two key people, and the systems are easier to run
Mhm.
because it's smaller. But then you start growing and you realize at 25 employees, that chaos is eating you alive and your employees alive, and you
Mhm.
get burnt out. So typically that's the breaking point is you've grown enough that you've got a team, but they're constantly asking questions and you just keep going in your head. I want it to be a well-oiled machine and I want it to work like it used to.
Mhm. That is a great segue into talking about owner mindset, into managing the evolution of all this as you grow your business, because your example that you just sort of pointed out there is really about the owner, probably, as you said when we were having a conversation before we recorded the episode today. It's sort of everything's in the owner's head,
Mhm.
and then the owner can't be everything to everybody anymore, or that's not the highest and best use of their time. So, talk a little bit about the mindset shift that has to, I guess, in my estimation, you'll correct me if you see something different out there, but that probably has to happen before the work that you help the agencies do can be effective, right?
Yeah, it has to be a mind shift. And I went through it myself. I had an agency with
Me too.
125 employees. So, you do have to change. You go from wanting to be a part of everything because that's when you started. You were a part of everything. And
Mm,
you have to realize you have to let go of ego, which is so difficult to do. And, sometimes you need people to help break you out of that mindset because I had a hard time letting go. And I had a business partner that said, you have no choice. You have to start letting go because we need to grow this company and you keep wanting to be in the day to day. And thank God I had that wake up call
yeah.
because if not, I would have kept cruising along painfully. Even with systems in place, you still have to have a mindset going, no, I can't be here anymore. I need to hire the right people or put the training in place so that they can lead and I can lead our company. They can lead our clients, the systems, whatever. And so
Mhm.
you do have to get to a point that says, I can let go of some things and be in a position to run my company instead of it just running me every day.
Yeah. I've struggled with this personally just in growing my own business. And I think it's an entrepreneurial issue that maybe isn't agency specific, but it is. I'm wondering if you have ever onboarded your own agency clients and then sort of had to either slow the pace of implementation of change or just kind of take a pause altogether while the owner's sort of sense of control and ownership over the day to day sorts itself out. Have you ever faced that experience doing the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, we faced that early on too. And I think that's a great thing for founders to start to assess where do they want their company to go. You don't have to keep moving at 150 miles per hour on a track that maybe doesn't serve you or the clients best. And
Mhm.
so even in this business, I've had this company 5 years after exiting my other one. And early on, we do those kind of not really a roller coaster, but where you ramp up and then you go, okay, is this where we want to be? Let's slow down sales for a second. Let's build a couple of systems in place. And then now we're at a really scalable way where we don't have to keep hitting that pause and building the systems we need for tracking. And sometimes that's okay with agencies too, where they're doing that with clients. Maybe you have one system that you just really want to do a sprint on and get it in place,
Yeah.
let it work itself out, and then in 2 months pick back up. You're going to have these things because you're going to have different things that pull your attention at different times, and
Mhm.
I think that's okay as long as you keep coming back to building the systems instead of just avoiding them for a year. If you avoid them for a year, then you've got other things that you need to start putting in place too with the system, getting the right people or whatever it might be.
Right. How did you get from being an agency co-owner whose partner had to tell her that she needed to focus on the big picture and not the day to day so much, to someone who co-founded a company that helps other agencies do that? Tell me about that evolution from
Yeah,
here.
I'm so appreciative of, I mean, I remember that day so vividly when my business partner came in and told me that in my office. And I said, you know what, you're right. And so from there, and we already had Asana in place and a ticketing system. Like we already had so many systems, but I wasn't letting go of some of the client work. And
Mhm.
so from that point on, I'm like, okay, how can I have so much institutional knowledge with our large contracts. That's what I didn't want to let go. Our $3 million contracts, that are paying us, got 5 of those. That's a big chunk of money. And I didn't want to let that go because that's, what we're doing here.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, I had to step back and I'm like, I've got all these systems in place. I need to hire the right people, but how do I get what's in my head out? And I started creating videos on everything. And I hired an assistant to help me translate those into knowledge docs.
Mhm.
And within a year, I had 2 people that could cruise along without me on those contracts. And they might only need to pull me into a meeting every quarter. And so it's 1 hour of my time a quarter versus hours of my time daily. And
Wow.
so after exiting, so I exited a couple of years after that, and that's a big key piece because if the business still needed me to operate those contracts, I couldn't have exited
Mhm.
because then they needed me, the new company needed me to stay on. What that would have looked like.
Right, right. Well, so let's pause for 1 second, and everybody who's multitasking, maybe come back to us for a minute. Those of you agency owners who want to be in a position for succession in a few years, and Drew McClellan from AMI, he says this all the time, you need to make yourself as irrelevant as possible, as soon as possible. If you want a relatively fast departure, if you've got the bandwidth of time between now and when you're planning to exit, you need to get in the business of making yourself less irrelevant to the day and to the day to day, every day, if you want to reap the most value out of your interest in the agency. So, um, take a chapter from what Elaine is talking about in terms of the institutional knowledge for the clients, because that's what I think most of us as entrepreneurs are afraid of, right? Is
Mhm.
losing that either that reputational capital that we have with a client or those one-to-one relationships. I mean, maybe you sold that account back in the day and you've been with it as it's grown at every step. So it's hard to step away from being day to day in their business like you used to be. But
Yeah.
yeah.
What I found going through that too is things that I thought were so important to the relationship were just fine with somebody else. I mean, you've got to find the right person for the role. but the
Yeah.
client was just as happy to work with the other person that they were with me,
Right.
because I'm so busy, I'm a bottleneck. And so, I made this huge deal about so much. And I'm like, then looking back, I'm like, I made that a bigger deal than it was. I could have done that 2 years prior and it would have been just fine.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you want to exit and that is in your mindset for the future, getting yourself out as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So you had that epiphany based on a conversation with your partner at the time, and you made yourself less and less, um, integral to the day to day with the client relationships. And then you eventually exited the agency. What made you decide to found this business and focus on this aspect of agency operations?
When we got bought, I had to stay on for a period of time, and it wasn't for that reason. It was for another reason. We had such a well-oiled machine
Mhm.
that the company that bought us wanted us to put those same systems in place. And so we did an 18-month, we got a lump sum of money up front and then a buyout if we stayed on afterwards and put our systems in place.
Mhm.
And what I realized is what we were doing at our agency was not what every agency does.
Mhm.
And the operational value that we offered to the new company, we saw their lifetime value of their clients increase 20%.
Wow.
Their employees went from staying on average for 6 months to when we left, they were still there. So over 18 months. So you see these things starting to happen when people can just go to work, get their job done well, and they can take care of their clients, then happiness just goes up and value of your company goes up. And
Mhm.
so after my time was up and I left and was sitting around bored in retirement, I thought maybe other companies need what I just did. And
Mhm.
that's when I just started consulting and found out there's a huge need. We all have something special that we're bringing to the table with our companies. And some companies are awesome at the sales process and crushing it on that part. And operations may be a little bit chaotic. And where I'm super great at the operations, there's other pieces that I'm not good at. And
Mhm.
so I started testing the waters and found out, hey, there is a niche here. I can come in and help. And so I've been building that now since the exit.
What's your favorite workflow challenge problem to solve?
My favorite, I don't know. I mean, challenge, maybe not a challenge, but I love new client onboarding. It's
Okay.
my favorite.
Okay.
And I think it's because it alleviates so much pain for agencies. And so we can kick off from a one proposal all the way to creating all the folders, tasks, everything that needs to happen, even drafting the welcome email from a template can all happen from just marking it one in your CRM. And when you see the handoff between sales and account management decrease by 2 hours per client, then you're like, man, I just gave amazing value to the company, but also the client is sitting there waiting to be onboarded, sometimes for a week,
Mhm.
depending on how much stuff. And so I get to see both sides where the clients for that company are just like, oh my God, this is awesome. The employees are happier. And so that one's my favorite one to do.
That's awesome. I think that a lot of us don't understand how valuable that opportunity is to cement the relationship, as that good sound experience when you're bringing the client into the fold in the first place. Um, so when you work on onboarding with your agency clients, what are some of the common patterns or problems that get presented to you? Or, what are some of the things that you see consistently that agencies need help with in this area?
The very first thing is they have a project management system like Monday, Asana, ClickUp, Trello, something. They have something, but they are using it so poorly. They don't have all their systems in there. They've kind of have it um, ad hoc, do this task, do this task. They're not looking at it from a project workflow and then a systems workflow, how do these things build together?
Mhm.
And for instance, maybe it's something like you want to do a case study on a client, you're wrapping up their project. Well, in your project management system, when you're getting close in the workflow to finishing, that could automatically loop in marketing to do a case study on that client. You can have things between departments start happening. You can have templates for new employee onboarding, not just client, your internal team's just as important as your external clients.
Right.
And so what kind of these systems that can be built? And so that's the first thing that we start to look at, training the team, making sure they know how to use it. Just because you have a project management system does not mean everyone's using it the same way or
Mhm.
even really knows how to use it. They're assigning a task here and there, putting a due date, but no one's using it the same way.
Okay. So, and are there any aspects of the onboarding that you find it's more fruitful to focus on upfront or first, or how do you know which? Because onboarding is a large undertaking, right? So it's
It's
got
a
multiple
broad one.
pieces and parts. Yeah.
So I like to, each client is a little bit different. Some of them really like to have it start from an outside system, like the CRM, marking it as one. And then others are, well, I don't even have a CRM. How can we kick this off? So some of the low hanging fruit with even just something like a new client onboarding could be creating in your project management system, just create a task with subtasks. So there's like basically like a checklist. What is everything? Invoicing the client. Do you know how many times an agency forgets to invoice the client for weeks?
Yeah.
Like things like that, that nobody communicated to accounts receivable that an invoice needed to get created. So, all of these things could just like sit down, even with it, if it's a pen and paper, and say, okay, what at a bare minimum needs to happen when a new client comes on board, and create a task, subtask, put it in there as a template. Then every time a new client comes on board, just duplicate that template. And that can be something just super easy to get started.
That is really helpful because when I think of onboarding, I think of the steps and the communications that need to go from the agency out to the client. But you're right. What about all the internal things we and all the people we need to talk to internally to make sure that we're onboarding them for our purposes operationally? So that is a great tip, and that's something that initially comes to my mind when I think of onboarding, because I think about it from the client's perspective, and that's critical, of course. But there's got a lot of things that have to happen internally in order for
Yeah.
you to put your best foot forward with the client and look like you have your act together, right? As an agent
Yeah.
or any kind of service provider. Okay.
Th-
All
There
right.
can
So
be some
fun.
fun things too, like connecting with LinkedIn. Like that's one of our subtasks is, hey, go connect with them on LinkedIn. Things that you maybe
That's genius.
that don't feel like part of the process, but should be. And it's so easy if you have that consistency to look at, like, okay, what's my subtask? Okay, gonna go connect with them on LinkedIn. You can have admins take care of it, whatever.
That's genius because it just makes me reflect on how much lack of confidence I have in the fact that I'm even connected on LinkedIn to all of my clients. I don't do that automatically. I mean, and you're right that sometimes you'll look at LinkedIn and someone who's been your client for years, you're not even connected on LinkedIn and you're missing an opportunity to know what's going on in their lives. So that's a really great tidbit. I love it. I love
Good.
it. I love it. I'm gonna steal that one for myself.
Good. Please do.
I will. All right, so that's onboarding. What other aspects of agency workflow do you either see frequently presented to you or that you see patterns that agencies exhibit where they could be upping their game?
One of the other easiest ones is recurring tasks.
Okay.
What recurs in your business on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, that you don't want to have to remember to do, that a task is automatically going to pop up? And so a common one that agencies need that they don't have in place is even something for pulling, if you're working on an hourly basis for clients, pulling hourly reports at the end of the month, right?
Mhm.
You don't really need to know to do that. Your accounting person may do that. But what if they are out that week and somebody else has to take it? You're always going to have if, thens, and buts, right? With clients, like, okay, this client needs this month, and we need to make sure this happens with them. We've got this new client coming on board, but we've offered them a 5-hour credit, or something like that. All of those notes can be in that recurring task. So whether it's your normal person that sends out invoices or somebody new, no one has to ask questions. It's all already logged with that task for the month.
Got it. How do you deal with agencies that are your clients who struggle with they may have alternate billing models, they may have value-based billing models or project slash flat fee billing models, and so they are, not as focused, shall we say, on maintaining accurate utilization and time records. Um, how do you how do you have the conversation with them about what metrics are important and why this is critical, or maybe when it isn't critical but would be helpful? How do you sort of help a client analyze that? Because I mean, agencies struggle with this all the time. They're never 100% compliant. They're never billing for 100% of the work that their teams do for clients. And a lot of times the pushback is we're a flat fee firm. We are a value billing firm. So the time for us, you know, as long as it kinda seems like we're making money, and enough of it, then we don't focus so much on that. What is
Yeah,
your sort of, Sermon on
this
the
is
Mount moment for those folks?
yeah. I can't change their mind on what
No,
they
I
see as
can't either.
valuable, but this is a huge pain point. I'm so glad that you brought this up because one of the things that we often have to help an agency do is determine which time tracking software is the best fit for their solution stack.
Mhm,
And so setting, and then we'll help them set up the rules in that time tracker correctly.
mhm,
So what is billable time? What's the rate for that client? And this is actually something that can be a part of the new client onboarding automation. So let's say you decide to use Toggle, that's a time tracking software.
mhm,
When you do new client onboarding as an automated workflow, that client automatically goes in to Toggle as a new project and people are already able to access it without somebody having to go in and create that client in there.
mhm,
So step one is, do you have a time tracking software? You'd be surprised, or maybe not, at how many are just winging it for time and using spreadsheets.
mhm.
And then, having some kind of client hub. So we love building client hubs within a project management system for a client. And so what a client hub can look like is a list of clients, who the account manager is assigned to this client. And so each account manager has their list of clients. What are the expected hours that we should be working on that client every week? If this is a $2,000 a month client, you only want to allocate so many hours, even if it's project based. You
Mhm.
only want to allocate so many hours. If it's a 10,000 a month client, you're probably going to hopefully put more time into that client.
Right.
And so a column in that project, in that client hub, can be how many expected hours should we be doing? So you have a frame of reference from Toggle, and then we can build reports and dashboards off of that. And so we can, like within ClickUp, we can build um, an everything dashboard that shows, are you on track with your hours? Are you over hours? And also looking at it from a team capacity standpoint. How
Mhm.
many tasks is your team doing? And are they capable of doing a client that you just sold $10,000 worth of work to?
Right. Right. I think that some of the reasons why agencies feel like they've solved this problem by adjusting their pricing model is because they're not firm on the metrics that they really want to use to evaluate the success or the profitability of the agency.
Mhm.
Some of it, sometimes we look at cash flow, but not profitability. Sometimes we look at profitability, but not for a long enough trajectory of time. And do you see this with your clients that they haven't really thought, like, at a high level about what the metrics are that are meaningful to them, and that would inform how you help them design their workflow processes?
Yeah, we see that a lot, and so often when you don't live in that world where
Yeah.
things are possible, you don't even know what's possible yet. And you
Mhm.
don't feel like that's a metric that could be measured. You can't even fathom, and it feels overwhelming too, to go in and have to build a KPI dashboard or some type of metric for your business.
Mhm.
And that's really too why we as an agency hone in on the project management system being the core of it, because everything can bubble into that
Mhm.
with ease. It's set up for agencies to operate. And so, a little bit is that they don't know that it could be tracked, and a little bit is that they wouldn't even know how to build it. And so we come in, and part of what we're doing with them is finding out what is important. What metrics do you need to know? And then we can tell them how we can build the dashboards for them, so they can just in one click get that information.
Mhm. Do you see, or do you have a point of view on the metrics that maybe you think agencies miss a lot, or the ones that you feel are the most important to be served by the data that you can get from a good workflow system?
I think two things. One is capacity management,
Mhm.
because you're managing a team of people, and one person could be bottlenecking everything. And so
Right.
that's one thing, is like, how many tasks across all of your projects is your team member managing? And so that you get visibility there. And then the other thing is managing clients. A lot of times we see agencies do like a weekly client status meeting. All right, let's all jump on a call, and we're going to go through our list of clients and talk about the statuses. And I used to be there early on. That's what I did. And I would just get so furious by the end of the call. Not because my team was doing anything wrong, they were fantastic. But I just saw dollar signs. When one person's talking and talking about their client, everyone else not associated with that is costing me money.
Yeah.
And so client status is another one that can be moved. You don't even have to do calls unless you need to jump on a call to solve a problem. That's between you and that individual, not your entire team. And
Mhm.
so we'll put into place, and it all functions from that client hub that I mentioned, is a client status update process that they get assigned a task every week for each of their clients that they manage with the status. And it can even have temperature of the client. Are they happy? Are they angry? You know,
Mhm.
from a manager standpoint, that's also great to know. If they're not too happy, maybe y'all need to do some damage control. Like
Definitely.
all kinds of things can be structured into it. And
Yeah.
that alleviates massive time. If people don't have to be sitting on meetings where they aren't getting value out of, and you're not necessarily getting value of, and that can be moved, man, then you're cranking work out, just eliminating the number of meetings to be on.
Yeah, I do like the idea of, honing down the amount of time we actually spend. I think it's good. I mean, especially with the dispersed workforce that many agencies have these days. I think it's good to create increased opportunities for touch points. But at some point, you do get over critical mass where you're spending a lot of time with a lot of internal Zoom meetings or in person meetings. And you have to kind of wonder, are we actually being efficient or, serving the client or ourselves? I think it's worth taking a hard look at that periodically, and
Mhm.
your workflow system can help you do that. That's great, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we talked about onboarding, we talked about client hubs, we talked about um, other aspects of the workflow process. Are you do you find yourself what's a question that you wish most agencies who engage with you would ask and don't ask, or something
I
or something that they're not asking and they should be asking?
I think the easiest one is just at a starting place. How do I get the knowledge that's in my head out?
Mhm.
Whether you're building a system or not, how do I get it out of my head? And a lot of times they don't necessarily ask that question. They just want things to work.
Mhm.
They want to go back to how things used to be. That doesn't mean that they want to get the knowledge out. They just want other team members to do things miraculously.
Right.
And so, when we start working with a client, we just put in some basics. How do you start documenting, building a knowledge base? Because even if you have the system in place, that doesn't mean the person knows how to do the job, because
Right.
there's a what and a how to it, right? And so, one of the easiest things is Loom or whatever video tool that you use. Create a quick video, put it in the process, and then you could have a admin take the transcript, have it write out the process. ChatGPT can write out the process for you in
Right.
30 seconds, less than 30 seconds, and then put that into a knowledge base doc. And so that can be within the project management system, that could be in another tool that you
Mhm.
build knowledge bases in, whatever it is, but put it somewhere people can find it. And people are like, well, I've created all these Loom videos. Well, that lives in your Loom library. That's not accessible by everybody.
It's just
You
one
know?
step away from having it in your brain if you don't tell people what the
Exactly.
videos are. Yeah, yeah. You gotta crack your skull open and see what's in there. Otherwise,
Yeah.
show us where the looms are. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So you got to have the what with the how, and that's how your team can start operating without you.
Yeah. Um, Share with us about the importance of the team training that goes along with the implementation of some of these new workflow systems, and how have you found that agencies are most successful? I mean, it's great if they're setting up a train you all or an internal wiki or something like that, and they're housing it there. But how do you sort of culture everybody to take advantage of all these efficiencies, or to help them understand how to use them? And do you walk your clients through a training program that they can implement with their team members so that everybody understands why we're doing what we're doing to improve workflow?
Yeah, we do. So if we are building the operations or the workflows for them, part of our process is also to build the documentation for them.
Mhm.
And so we will build the documentation, but we also do a little bit of training on the change management piece. Because we see this so often, is the company starts putting this stuff in place, the resources are there, but when they get asked the question, they answer it instead of sending them to the habit
Uh,
doesn't get broken. They keep, and the employee is going to keep going the path of least resistance. The
yep,
easiest path is for them to ask a question and not have to do any other work. Then the work is on the other person. And
right.
so for leadership, you have to get in the habit, instead of answering the question, go look in the knowledge base,
Mhm.
go look there. I don't know the answer, go find it. And also, this is a living, breathing thing as a part of your company. So if you're using Arvo or Trainual or even Google Docs, that's a starting place. That's at least something, is sending people there. And if nothing is there, somebody needs to create the asset. If the information is truly in your head, then create it.
Mhm.
At least create a Loom video, and an admin can go and create the rest of the documentation for you. But it needs to be constantly updated, because your system's broken. Then if you have some stuff there, then you get asked a question and it's not there. That's the hole that needs to get filled then.
Right. Whew. Well, wow. I mean, for those of you agency owners and leaders out there who are struggling because um, either you can't pull yourself out of the day to day because you don't have the system in place to allow you to do so, or whether you have some mindset work to do before you get there. This is important stuff when it comes to analyzing the highest and best use of all the resources that are in your agency. And, for those of you looking at your margins and scratching your heads about how to get them better, because we know razor thin margins are always a challenge in the agency business. Thinking about how you automate your workflow and how you start to attack the problem, what the low hanging fruit is a great way to start to hack away at the problem. And so, Alane, this has been fascinating conversation. I know I've taken a ton of things away just to implement in my own business, which is not an agency, but which are applicable in my firm as well. And so I'm so grateful to you for sharing some of your knowledge. And I would love it if you would give us a couple of ways that agencies who might want to connect with you to get some help could be able to.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome. So my website is workdayninja.com, and on there are two free resources. One of them is a project management tool selector. So you go on there, you answer 12 questions. It takes less than 2 minutes, and it'll tell you which project management system is best for your company.
Mhm.
And so a lot of times they've been juggling, which one's the best one. So a free tool takes less than 2 minutes. And then the other one is, I think it's less than 8 questions on what is your software stack, which software are you using at your company, and it'll give you 25 free automation ideas of what could be put in place using the software systems you already use.
I love that. I love that. Who wouldn't
So
benefit
those
from
are,
that? That's amazing.
yeah, those are both free on my website. And then personally, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Alane Boyd, and I love connecting with other people. If you have questions, please message me.
Thank you so much for being with us today on Innovative Agency. I know everyone listening learned a lot. I certainly did. And I really appreciate your time and your expertise today.
Thanks for having me.
It's been my pleasure. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining today. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Innovative Agency. And until then, stay well.